If you're a bank, why would people keep money in a non-yielding checking account or savings account? That's our float. That's our our deposit base. Where does our deposit base go if it can move at an instant, overnight, seconds, anywhere all over the world? And so they were having kind of a panic moment when they realized this. So uh, that's the stage we're at. Just to give you some perspective, I think, in terms of how the traditional world is waking up to this.
I think that my thought to your question is really it's search for excess yield, right? And so that's what's going to attract the TradFi players coming in, and the ability to do that 24/7 and to move in and out. But it's really a yield harvesting sort of exercise and attraction. I think that's going to draw TradFi out further out on the risk curve.
Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. In today's video, we're going to be diving into some ongoing DeFi developments surrounding Ripple and the XRPL. Now, the two gentlemen that you are just listening to, Chris Cooper from the Fidelity Digital Asset Management team, and then you also have Jack McDonald from Ripple. Now, they're particularly talking about how institutions are waking up to this ideology behind yield generation, and Jack McDonald specifically said that yield is what is going to allow these institutions to broaden their risk horizon. This is monumental considering some of the recent and ongoing developments that we're going to cover in today's video. So if you enjoy these types of breakdowns and these types of deep fundamental dives, bringing you guys some of the realest information on the face of the internet, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. So since we are on the topic of yield generation, this video breakdown from Dan Donnie, the DTCC, that I posted on September 3rd, 2025, is going to go hand in hand with some of the ongoing developments and unlocks that the XRPL is bringing to both the traditional finance and decentralized finance space, where the two are now in a process of merging together. I said here, just holding and trading digital tokens like XRP, Bitcoin, or HBAR, any digital token in general, you name it, is not enough. Don't take that from me, take it directly from the DTCC. Learning how to use your crypto as collateral is not optional. It's the key to surviving and thriving in this new financial era. People think the most important thing is liquidity, the ability to convert dollars, in this case, to crypto, and crypto into dollars, i.e. trading activity. However, the truth is the foundation of finance is collateral. Every day, trillions of dollars move through lending and borrowing. That is key importance for today's video. Quality assets are posted as collateral, cash is borrowed against those assets, and liquidity flows. DeFi education now more than ever is an absolute must.
The one right to win that DTCC has in this model is we are the record keeper for quadrillions of dollars of transactions, but for fundamentally assets under record, approximately $100 trillion worth of assets. So unilaterally, without the need to engage anyone else, we can actually make it possible to tokenize $100 trillion worth of value. No one else can do that efficiently. So we have both a right and a responsibility to do that effectively for the financial markets, because it unlocks so much among those things that it unlocks. So we're building out those rails to do that, to make it so that parties can, within seconds, convert any traditional holding into token form to conduct transactions. But tokens themselves really aren't game changers. They're just another database, a database with benefits to be sure, but just another database in the end. It's actually what you can do with tokens that makes the big difference. And the foundational transaction in finance is collateral. So most people think liquidity really comes from trading activity, that's what makes a difference, my ability to convert dollars to shares of Tesla. Yeah, that's important. But by far, that's a drop in the bucket compared to transactions in liquidity that have to do with borrowing and lending. So there are transactions. Repurchase agreements are the way that banks get liquidity. So they take assets, high quality assets like treasuries, and when they need cash, they post them as collateral and borrow cash from one another in a model called repurchase agreements or repos. That transaction is the most dominant transaction of any globally on a daily basis. Over $20 trillion a day I think it's even more than that. But anyway, roughly that amount is in that transaction. Well, turns out blockchain is the perfect technology. Perfect. It's like tailor-made. It's the killer app for blockchain to do collateral management.
Repo transactions, posting assets as collateral, lending and borrowing. You cannot make up this vocabulary. This is coming directly from the DTCC. Now, considering what Jack McDonald had said at the beginning intro of today's video breakdown, let's fast forward to September 18th, 2025. Jack McDonald recently posted this. Repo transaction volume is well into the tens of trillions of dollars globally, nearly 12 trillion in the US in 2024 itself. And DBS Bank, FTI Global, and Ripple will together enable the first ever repo trade for tokenized money market funds with RLUSD, a regulated, stable, and liquid mode of exchange. And what does this announcement do? What does it provide? What does it unlock? It says right here, introducing the next building block of on-chain markets. We're participating and partnering with DBS Bank and FTI Global to establish a repo market powered by tokenized collateral and stablecoins. Investors will be able to use RLUSD to trade for Franklin Templeton's money market fund, SG Benjin, tokenized on the XRP ledger and listed on DBS's digital exchange, earning yield and opening new liquidity venues. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been at the forefront of telling you guys DeFi is of the utmost importance to do for everybody's education curve in crypto right now. Learn DeFi, learn how to post your digital assets as collateral, learn how to lend and learn how to borrow. You don't need to go out there and risk XRP to do so. You just need to learn. Now, if we go back to this podcast where Jack McDonald here says,
well, I'll jump in here. I think one of the themes that we're going to see play out in 2025, and I echo a lot of Nate's comments, certainly around regulatory clarity sitting here in the U.S. There's a big tailwind right now behind us, which is very well received, and you're already seeing the action in there. But I do think you're going to see greater activity within the TradFi world coming into the crypto space broadly and DeFi specifically.
So he said in 2025, you're going to see a broad on-ramping of traditional finance into the DeFi ecosystem specifically. Now, another thing that was said that is going to coexist with now forward-looking fundamentals that exist in the now is they mentioned this idea behind double-digit yield and how that is going to be accessible in the future.
And some of these high-yielding products that we've spoken about, I think, could be tremendously attractive to some of the retail portfolios that are out there as an addition, basically, in this environment. You can, to your point, David, you can generate double-digit yields in some of these assets quite easily, and it's out there for the taking.
So above this gentleman, Ned, Jack McDonald cracked a little smile when he mentioned double-digit yields. You have Jack McDonald talking about this new announcement with DBS FTI Global and what it does for yield generation, posting digital assets as collateral, repo transaction volume, so on and so forth, and how that coexisted with what the gentleman from the DTCC said about lending and borrowing, posting digital assets as collateral is the biggest use case. Well, in more recent times, what did we see announced at XRP Sol 2025? Wake up. We are entering into an era where we never have to sell our digital assets. Since we heard the gentleman alongside Jack McDonald mention double-digit yields, introducing MXRP, liquid staking yield-bearing XRP for key boxes on the slide. Available on XRPL EVM sidechain, a liquid staked yield-bearing XRP token built on advanced DeFi infrastructure, and it's offering anywhere between 8 to 10% yield. That's double-digit yield, ladies and gentlemen. 10% yield is insane on MXRP. By liquid staking yield-bearing XRP, this is huge. This is huge. A game changer for not only retail investors, but also for traditional finance. Now, to continue on the DeFi development loop, RippleX just posted this today. So this is fresh as of time of recording this video. It is Monday, September 22nd. Depending on when you're watching this, it might be a couple days old, but like mic drop for what is happening in the terms of DeFi developments on the XRPL that have never been available in previous market cycles. That is one of the biggest things I think most XRP enthusiasts and holders need to understand, is that we have never entered into an era. We've never operated in an environment where we've been able to just hold our XRP and generate yield with it. Imagine if over the past 5 years, you've been able to earn anywhere between 3 to 10% on your XRP, how much bigger your bags would be. Once you've gathered that thought, now think of it between now and 2030, holding on to your digital asset XRP and just earning yield and compounding that every single second of every single day, or at the end of every day, or the end of every week, or end of every month between now and 2030, how big your bag is going to be. This is monumental. I know personally whales that are never going to sell their XRP, that are 110% going to be earning yield on their digital assets. It is my personal opinion that everybody should be learning how to do this in the now. So RippleX posted this. Institutional DeFi is here. Considering what Jack McDonald said in this podcast from a few months ago, he wasn't capping, right? Institutional DeFi is here on the XRP ledger, and it has solidified its position as the trusted open source settlement layer for global institutions. Now, I took this particular document because in this document that they posted from RippleX, if you come over here on to this document, it is titled "The Next Phase of Institutional DeFi on the XRPL, Credit Compliance and Confidentiality." And if you scroll right down here, it talks about this native lending protocol. The most significant near-term milestone is the launch of XRPL's native lending protocol. And it gives you a link to click on and takes you over here where you can read in detail about this XRP Ledger lending protocol. So taking all the text from the September 11th, 2025 release of Bridging Traditional Finance and Emerging Digital Asset Infrastructure, the Great Collateral Experiment from the DTCC, over to ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT a simple question. What direct quote from the article from Ripple best coexists with the document from the DTCC? And it says right here, the strong direct quote from the Ripple article that best coexists with the DTCC document is: the next step in developing the lending protocol involves introducing a collateral system to enhance risk mitigation and strengthen the security of loan agreements. Borrowers will pledge acceptable assets as collateral, protecting depositors against potential defaults and promoting responsible borrowing practices. This system will support various asset types, providing flexibility and securing loans. And if you guys remember, the DTCC has a patent with XRP and XLM. Why this aligns with the DTCC's article. It says, tokenized collateral, a real-time mobility. The DTCC stresses that tokenization opens the door to real-time mobility and optimization, helping market participants deploy resources where and when they are needed most. Ripple's quote directly complements this vision by explaining how collateral will be pledged, tokenized, and managed on-chain to secure lending and to protect market participants. The DTCC's Great Collateral Experiment evaluates how tokenized collateral can be pledged, rehypothecated, and used for margin requirements while maintaining market safety and soundness. Ripple's collateral system does the same within XRPL's decentralized architecture, embedding risk management and default protections. Last but not least, it mentions the unified future of finance. Both articles emphasize the fusion of traditional finance safeguards, collateral, risk controls, regulatory compliance with blockchain efficiency, tokenization, smart contracts, and as you heard Dan Donnie at the beginning of this say, smart contracts are perfect for this. Ripple's roadmap for on-chain collateral is DeFi native, and the implementation of the very same principles the DTCC aims to scale across $300 trillion of global assets. And in the DTCC document, you can see right here, it does mention that they are attempting to bring trillions of dollars into this space, right? So coming back over here to this document from RippleX and just thoroughly reading through this, because this is groundbreaking, in my personal opinion, something that everybody needs to be paying attention to. So September 22nd, 2025, we will end it here. I will read some of these highlights. It goes on to say, institutional DeFi has crossed the tipping point from pilot projects to billion-dollar volumes. Over the last year, the XRP ledger has broken into the top 10 for real-world assets, reached its first $1 billion plus month in stablecoin volume, and cemented its role as a settlement layer trusted by both crypto-native firms and regulated financial institutions. At the core of this evolution is XRP itself. Every new feature that enhances the XRP ledger's institutional utility strengthens the underlying demand and use case for the network's native digital asset. That is a huge statement right there, considering we know that these are all DeFi primitive unlocks, and we know that in previous market cycles, DeFi brought utility to ETH.
Years ago. DeFi actually brought utility to ETH, right? Now, if you're holding ETH, you can lend it, you can borrow, you can stake, you can do so many things.
Now, fast forward to today, we have people sitting in on these podcasts where we're seeing DeFi unlocks on the XRPL, and they're saying that they believe that XRP is going to supersede Ethereum.
And then last but not least, like I'm going to have one equally contentious. I think that XRP will flip Ethereum.
Now, I personally don't see that happening this year to set a realistic tone for the pace of the remainder of this video breakdown. But is it possible if we continue to see monumental DeFi unlocks on the XRPL, scaling institutional demand for the digital asset XRP? Absolutely. So with that being said, let's continue to read this, considering that it says, at the core of this evolution is XRP itself. Every new feature that enhances the XRPL institution utility strengthens the underlying demand and use case for the network's native digital asset. I love how they made that clear. The ledger is increasingly positioned to power two of the most significant use cases in global markets today. One, stablecoin payments, and two, collateral management. Exactly what Dan Donnie from the DTCC said is the biggest use case in traditional finance, which is, again, a huge wake-up call for anybody ignoring DeFi on the XRPL. This roadmap update highlights what has already gone live, what is under active validator voting, and what is coming in the months ahead, especially emphasizing two themes shaping the next stage of XRPL's institutional DeFi evolution: the launch of a native lending protocol. It also talks about credentials, DIDs, or digital identifier credentials, enabling trusted users to attest to attributes such as KYC statuses, accreditation, or regulatory permissions. On their own, credentials provide a more secure and privacy-preserving way for institutions to meet compliance requirements, but the real power comes as a foundational building block within the XRPL's broader identity stack, enabling permission domains, regulated decentralized exchanges, and compliant access to tokenized assets and lending markets. Credentials are less of a standalone product and more a key enabling piece in assembling regulated DeFi. I love that phrase right there. Together, these features strengthen the XRPL's compliance and settlement toolkit, offering critical capabilities for institutions to look to operate on-chain with confidence. Then down here, it talks about, for institutions, regulatory compliance is not an optional layer, it is the gateway to adoption. And the XRPL's identity stack has been designed to meet these expectations while preserving decentralization. Last but not least, down here, where it talks about the native lending protocol, says the most significant near-term milestone is the launch of the XRPL's native lending protocol, scheduled for release in the XRPL version 3.0.0 later this year. This protocol, defined in the XLS 6566 specifications, introduced pooled lending and underwriting credit directly at the ledger level, single asset vaults, or XLS 65 aggregate liquidity, issuing vault shares that can be transferable or non-transferable depending on configuration. These vaults can be public or gated via permission domains, ensuring open participation or controlled access as required. Hold on, it gets deeper. Wait till we get to the purple highlight. This is, again, the last piece I'm going to read to you guys. If you guys have enjoyed so far, by the way, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. To continue, the lending protocol XLS 66 then builds on these vaults to enable fixed-term uncollateralized loans with preset amortization schedules. Loan issuance is managed through on-ledger contracts between lenders and borrowers, while underwriting and risk management remain off-chain, where institutions already have mature models. Optional on-ledger first loss capital provides an added layer of depositor protection. While the protocol itself does not hold collateral, institutions can still structure collateralized loans through licensed third-party custodians or tri-party arrangements, combining the transparency of the XRP ledger with safeguards of regulated custody. This is monumental, people. For institutions, the appeal is clear. No financial institution will turn down low-cost capital if it can be sourced with KYC and AML standards. The lending protocol enables exactly that, pulling liquidity from a global base of smaller investors to institutional-sized loans while maintaining compliance. Borrowers will gain access to more efficient, low-cost funding. Lenders will earn yield on otherwise idle assets. Loan managers can then meet rising demand from traditional finance by tapping into the growing pool of digital asset liquidity. Looking ahead, institutions are already lined up to use the lending protocol on the XRP ledger, and its modular design ensures that new features can be iterated on quickly as market needs evolve. Last but not least, to wrap all this up, it says, Ripple's institutional DeFi roadmap for the XRPL is accelerating. In the last year, we've moved from token standards and compliance primitives to the brink of a protocol-level lending system. Next comes integrating these building blocks, stablecoins, real-world assets, lending, and compliance into cohesive markets that institutions can use with confidence. The North Star remains unchanged. XRPL as a leading chain for institutional finance, simple, secure, and compliant. I absolutely love it, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot stress enough. Now is the time to buckle down, to focus on learning about DeFi, not ignoring these types of headlines, because these are the things that are going to drive monumental amounts of demand for the digital asset XRP in the future. That is lending, borrowing, having the ability to post digital assets on the XRPL as collateral. This is an absolute game changer and one that people should not ignore, especially considering that in one of the previous posts that I mentioned, what does it talk about? An infinite money glitch by utilizing your XRP in the DeFi ecosystem. Why would any XRP holders not want to learn about an infinite money glitch? That's besides the point. Again, take into consideration everything that we've shown you guys here on the CYPRX YouTube. If you're new here, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. As always, if you guys want to learn how we are getting our digital assets working for us in the CYPRX private community, you guys can always head over to CYPRXtraining.com, tap in with us in the Wealth 20A Club. With all of that in mind, many blessings to you guys. Be cognizant. Please be aware out there. Pay attention to what it is that you're consuming, and I will see you guys in the next video breakdown.